Hi everyone, thank you for joining us here at the Beaufort Digital Corridor for our monthly Lunch and Learn series. Today we're really excited to present to you a speaker who's going to talk about all things digital marketing, ADA compliance, how to reputation manage. But before then, I'd like to introduce our newest, greatest employee, Angela Cox. Everyone, she's joining us as our program manager at the Beaufort Digital Corridor, and she's going to run through some great events that we have coming up.
Yes. So here we've updated our events calendar for everyone for October. This will be live on our website before the end of today. And we just want to highlight one of the events that we have on here, which is our Run Forest Run 5K. I'm running it, so I hope to see, Anne's running it too, so I hope to see you guys out there for it. That's on October 7th. And for more information on this and our events in general, you can go to beaufortdigital.com/events.
Perfect. And without further ado, please put a hand together for Eric Siano.
Okay. He asked me to use this thing, so I guess we're going to have to. So my name's Eric. How many of you run your own marketing? You run your own marketing? You guys? A funny thing, about 40% of small businesses do. Right? So it's a fairly big number. When I volunteered to do this, I was one of the mentors for the startup weekend, and I volunteered to do this. I thought, well, how am I going to do this? I teach digital marketing at 9 universities, and we get deep into the tools and stuff. I'm like, that's not where people mess up. The tools are easy. So took a slightly different approach. Anything you guys want to know about me?
Yeah, tell us about your story, about your companies, or who you work with.
All right, so grew up in Argentina. Learned to speak English when I was 11.
That's cool.
Obviously, I'm pretty good with languages because I speak French as well. I worked for General Motors for 18 years. In 18 years, I had 18 different assignments in marketing. I work on the philosophy, you screw up enough, they'll move you. So I've screwed everything up at least once or twice. And in the summer of '07, I decided to go into marketing consulting. I went to work for a small consultancy to learn how to consult and all that good stuff. Then I worked for Accenture Digital. In about 2.5 years into Accenture Digital, I had a friend of mine talk me into taking the role of vice president of product management and product marketing for the digital marketing portfolio for Infor. And about 10 months in, I said I've had enough, and I started my own marketing agency consultancy. So that's me. Anything else you want to know?
That's awesome.
We do a lot of cool stuff, by the way. Our company does 3 things. We do large-scale digital transformation. We did one for one of the global automotives in Latin America. So we went in and we put in digital advertising. I don't separate search from advertising as advertising. It fills in the same bucket, because anybody who's ever been in those tools knows that Google sets the pattern, everybody else follows it. So there's no point in saying, oh, social advertising is so different. It's not. You start with the same precepts and work through the tools the same way. We put in new websites. We restructured their CRM. We put in social media and reputation management. And then since we gave them great carpentry tools, we went behind and taught them how to be carpenters and put 11 bodies on the ground visiting with the distribution network. And we increased digital sales 570% in 30 days. We're not that good, really. It was a function of 3 things. They had much suckage. They were really bad. Right? Truth be told, they were really bad. We got lucky, and we're pretty good at what we do. So that's one part of the business. The other is we help companies run the business of marketing, right? Process work, technology, operating models, budgeting, all of that stuff. And then the last part of the business is just me, and I do fractional and interim marketing roles, and I teach digital marketing at a couple of universities. So we're going to talk about digital marketing today. quickly, I didn't do to you guys what I normally do, which is put up this thing and at the end, put it back up and put check marks on it. All right, so I didn't do that to you, trying to save some space. So we're going to talk about basics, pay to own to earned media, reputation management, and something that's become a huge issue for small businesses is ADA compliance. And then we'll have a Q&A, and there is a one-question quiz at the end. And you better pass, people. So, when you look at digital marketing, lots of different things you can do, right? From search engine marketing to social media. Notice how I keep lumping social media and reputation management together. I will not take a social media project on unless it has a social reputation management component attached to it. Right? It's just a losing proposition. So you got email, you can have your webs, you can do analytics, you can do all of this stuff. What's the problem with all that stuff? Lots of stuff. Problem is we try to be everything to everybody. And what you need to be is like an old fisherman. Fish where the fish are. Right? So you have to focus things. You're better off doing 3 things really well than doing all of that and not doing it well. So the point of this chart is think about where you can play and where you can play very effectively. Not everybody can play effectively in all channels. Not to mention every business has different client base. Therefore, your clients are in different places. This chart here, right? We all do this stuff as well, right? The top stuff. Here's where it gets a little bit tricky because it highly impacts digital, right? Digital out of home, right? You can put billboards on buses. You can do things at events. You can do a number of different things. Conversion rate optimization, right? I'm working on a piece that I'm going to publish on how to triage when you're not converting on your website. So you did your marketing, you got traffic, what happened? All right, that will be available on my website in the next couple of months. Then creative, because creative in digital is very different. The other thing, I'm a big advocate of creating assets for use and reuse, but digital assets are somewhat different in that they have to be lower resolution, other things, and colors, right? We all love that black and red together, right? It just draws people in. Guess what? It's impossible to read. If you guys ever want to do something, Google color studies, and you'll see, and it'll give you a lot of ideas on how to work with colors. You can also Google eye tracking studies, and you'll find something very interesting that happens. That as humans, we read user interfaces in a classic F that bleeds into an E, and you can drop stuff in all those hot spots, and people will see it. So you can cheat the code a little bit. So how are we going to get good? Not by being good at the mechanics, guys. You get good by working backwards. You set a very specific goal. I want to get 50 more customers that look like him, 20 that look like her. All right, okay, so now I got to say, how am I going to measure that I reach that? Then I design the program because she's going to be in different places than him. All right, so it's a process. These graphics, they look great on my computer. They didn't come out so good here. This basically campaign goals to company goals. They ladder up. So your campaign goals have to support your marketing goals, have to support your financial goals, and your corporate goals. And this over here says don't do random stuff. No random acts of content, CRM, email, social media. Right? People get excited about things and they do random acts of marketing. Right? A random acts of CRM is probably the worst one you see out there. And it's not good. It doesn't sustain anything. This is a dirty little secret, guys. We all love creative, don't we? Because it's fun, right? The images, the colors, that's the fun part. Truth of the matter is, 80% of our success comes from talking to the right people at the right time, having the right conversation, because we're after this mythical creature called an in-market consumer. If they're not in market, I learned this. I worked for a very, very difficult woman at General Motors. And she just drove us nuts with, we're trying to get people who are in market. We don't want to talk to the whole world, and just beat that into our heads forever. So the concept of being in market, I'll give you an example. I love the Zagato Veloce, Aston Martin Zagato Veloce. I've gone on their website. I've requested things. Never in my life am I going to buy that car. It starts at $800,000 and goes up from there. But it is a sexy beast. I love that car, right? So, and the last thing, I hope this offends some people. I really do. That marketing is not about you. It's about letting potential consumers know how you satisfy their needs or wants, right? Because I may want a fancy picture, right? So I go to the gallery, right? But I don't need it. I need transportation. I don't need that Zagato Veloce, right? I want that. So we need to understand, because when people are dealing with wants, guess what? They're willing to spend more. So we have to work that like crazy. So let's talk about the different types of media. Here's where the money's going, guys. This is a company called Marketing Charts. I get a daily email from them that we cover the fact that I'm fundamentally lazy and I will find the easiest way to do things. All right. So money's going to the search and social media. But now look over here. If we're trying to drive sales, right, and our goal is driving sales, direct traffic to our website does the best. Paid search, oops, SEO, look at that. Then email there, and look at social way down here. Drives traffic, does not drive conversions. That will change over time, guys, but that's the world we live in. So we all get excited because social media is sexy and it's fun. But if I'm trying to drive sales, where am I going to go? Not there. Digital's about building mass. Here's what I mean by building mass. When you look at your impact over time, your own media, your websites, your social properties, anything you have complete control of, build over time. Everything you earn, from social mentions to PR to influencers, all of that stuff grows as well. But look what happens with paid. Goes up very quickly. As soon as you shut that money tap down, it falls. So you have to work all three types of media to be successful. All right? That's not in conflict with what I just told you that says social doesn't produce sales. Because if we're trying to build a brand, et cetera, we're going to be in social. So they're not mutually exclusive. That's why we go back to the goal. Look what the return is. Email, the best. So if you have a good email list, work it, right? It returns darn near 40 to 1. Look at social. Returns about 95 cents on the dollar. So about every dollar I spent, it returns 95 cents. So if I'm
social, like I'm thinking about some of the things that I've gone to recently. Social got me to think about that company. And I ended up going to the website.
that's brand building.
Yeah, but it was the social that I wouldn't have gone there.
But brand building typically does not generate immediate sales. It's about getting people to know us, right? Because if you think about the traditional Allison Fisher purchase funnel where we go from awareness to consideration to purchase, right, and go down that funnel, right, you're building awareness and consideration. That's why it doesn't return the money, but it's very good at building awareness. You can actually use search engine marketing to build awareness. I had one of my students challenge me, so I put together some things and showed them how to work the funnel from top to bottom with search engine marketing. So you can actually do it. That's just more effective. But look, pay-per-click, you're going to get about $2 back because it's a performance medium, right? The thing that there's not a lot of research on is, okay, somebody saw my ad, did not click on it. But what impact did they have on it? Because we've all been there, right? We write it down or we yell at Siri on our phone. I saw this website, right? And then we go look at it later. So that it's not real clear there. In a perfect world, 5 to 1. So you should get, right, $5 back for every dollar you spend.
For the email side, are there specific tricks that we can employ to increase likelihood of selling it?
Get them to open it. That's the secret. I'll tell you, I did a tour of duty through GMAC, and I ran direct marketing that included direct mail and email. And we did things differently at the corporate. I ran corporate. We had a 28% conversion rate. And that had more to do with where we lived in the funnel than us being great. All of my field marketing directors weren't getting anywhere near the response. And they said, well, why are you getting such a response? I said, well, all my direct mail, number 10 business envelope, GMAC, return address. They thought it was their bill. Gotcha, you opened it. Right? And our email, the line, the subject line, that's what will drive your success rate.
Is there a formula for writing a good subject line?
If you want to know a lot of really cool stuff, and I don't normally plug companies, and I don't do any business with them, but HubSpot has a ton of stuff on digital marketing on their site. And they have a bunch of free tools, too. As you work with small businesses that aren't ready to buy things, they got a bunch of free tools that they can get a lot of value out of. I want you to think about your websites differently. We all think about it, it's a thing. Well, websites are really 4 different things. There's a presentation layer. That's what consumers see when they go on your site. That's what they experience. That's how you path them, your landing pages, all of those things. Think about the presentation layer. You got to eliminate all the friction. Make it easy. All right? Don't make them do 10 clicks to get to something. What do you guys think this weird thing means there? Pay off promises. So you were on social media, right? Somebody made a promise on social media. They said, come to our website and see this. If we dump them on the homepage, did we pay off that promise? Right? It's the same if we run an ad. Your landing page, if you think about Google and running a search ad, right, I'm going to tell you the 2 dirty words in digital you always have to remember and repeat frequently in front of people: intent and relevance. Google will decide based on that, and all of the social properties are going the same way. Based on that person's intent and all of our billions of bits of data, what's their intent? And then they look at you and say, ad, landing page, is it relevant? If you are, you get a higher score and you pay less in the auction.
Most customers don't even build a custom landing page when they run ads. They'll spend thousands of dollars running Google ads and not have custom landing pages for the ad campaign. So they land on their homepage and have no idea like what the ad is actually about. They redirect to the wrong place.
That's not paying off the promise. We make a promise with our marketing, we always have to pay it off. If I tell you I'm going to give you something, I'm going to give it to you. So presentation layer is key for that. The application layer, how it works. It's all about web core vitals for Google. And like it or not, Google's the 800-pound gorilla. They control 92% of search traffic. So you got to play by their rules, whether you like them or not. And if your mobile site, your desktop site is slow, doesn't perform well, etc., the web core vitals, so that application layer has to work there. The search layer, right, is a connector between your paid and organic. You have to have your organic keywords, your paid keywords. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're not. What do we do with keywords, guys? Why are keywords so important to you?
Those are the answers to people's questions. And if you don't have the right keywords, you're not the answer to their question when they search for your company or for that service or whatever you provide.
One of the things most companies start to do, let's just say I got a heating and air conditioning business. Industry's term is HVAC. Most people don't know what the HVAC is. So if I run an ad with HVAC in it, right, it's going to go, whoosh. It's not going to perform well. So it's not the correct keyword. Again, remember beginning, it's not about you. It's letting customers experience you in a natural way. That's the beauty of digital. As they're looking for things, they can experience you. Versus traditional marketing where I come over here and knock on your forehead and say, look at me, right? You really don't want to do that. The data layer is only important if you have forms that are filled out or if you do e-commerce. I'll tell you what we did for that automotive in Latin America is we had their technical people code all of their forms as a web service and went around the website and straight into the CRM. So we took out a PII vulnerability point, and then when I got mad at Jess, I could hand her an iPad and say, you're going to the mall to collect leads. That'll learn you to misbehave at work. Right? So you can do a lot of interesting things with the data. The data flows are important, but only if you have forms and only if you do e-commerce. If your site is brochureware, right, doesn't really matter. That's why there's not a little torn thing there. Let's talk about reputation management. There's 3 definitions there. Not one of them is good, but the 3 of them together make a lot of good points. Maintaining public perception, influencing, and overall perception. We can influence people, guys. We went to this automotive, worked with their distribution, right? The dealers on the ground. On average, they had a 3.5 star rating. In 9 months, we had them up to 4.5 stars. You think they got that much better? No, we worked with them on when to ask. Every industry has that golden moment when you love me, right? And that's when I'm going to ask you for a review, right? Not when you're mad at me, right? Not when you've had a problem. So every industry has a golden moment. For the most part, 2 big players are Google and Facebook. This thing over here is ugly. There's 50 other places where you can find reviews. If you're a restaurant, Yelp is much more important to you, right? So there's things that you can do. Let's talk about some of those. Oh, before we talk about what you can do, I wanted to show you why it's important. 72% of people say online reviews influence them as much as family and friends. And look at everything else. Look at that, our advertising. It's a question of credibility, right? If we look online and we see 5,000 reviews, right, and they got a 4.9 stars, we're going, they're there. They got a 5-star and they got 2 reviews, we go, eh. The same if they have thousands of reviews and they got 3.5 stars, we know there's some issues here. So it's hugely important. So what can we do? This is the pure basics in reputation management. That project in Latin America We actually hired Reputation.com to do the work. And then after a year, we decided it was way too much money to push on a local business. And we developed our own process and had very little drop-off. Because the process we developed had these 5 key elements. We claimed everything. Everybody here on their Google My Business page?
Yes.
Make sure it's up to date with the products you offer, the hours, that it is spot on. It is very critical to Google. They like their own page. And if you post stuff, right, because you can post on it just like any other social media, Google likes it a lot too, so it helps your SEO. You got to monitor what's going on. As I said earlier, ask for that review. All right, if you own a restaurant and somebody wants to compliment the chef, do you think we ought to ask them for a review? Or if somebody says, I love this wait staff, the individual on the wait staff, should we ask them for a review? Absolutely. This is where it gets tricky. You want to answer reviews, 100% of negatives. You want to take negative reviews offline as quickly as possible. Jess, I'm going to pick on you again. Jess is a jerk. So she wants to just fight with me in an online forum. I'm not going to engage. I will say, sorry that we disappointed you. Please contact me at this number. And that's it. She continues, she's going to be having a conversation by herself because I'm not going to help her to pan me. So that is critical, taking those reviews offline. Guess what? Jess is not such a jerk after all. She was just mad. So we talked. We got cool with each other. Guess what I'm going to do now? Ask her to update that review. Right? Because now she said, but you're okay because you fixed my problem. You guys know why that's so important? There was a study done out of Edinburgh that found that consumers have more trust for a company that messed up and stood tall and fixed it than the company has never messed up. So it's an important process. And we always want to have a positive tone. Just because Jess didn't behave well with me does not excuse me behaving poorly with her, right? Poor thing. Just, I shouldn't respond in a negative manner because of that.
I have a question.
Sure.
The 50%, responding to 50% of all positive reviews, what's the reasoning behind that versus responding to 100%? Because wouldn't we want to respond to every...
Do I always want to tell you, yeah, I know I'm good? Thanks, I know I'm good. Right?
I've seen what you're talking about. Like you're just saying, thank you. It's just like not,
Yeah, it's,
not enough detail to make it. Like if somebody's really meaningful in their feedback, and you can be meaningful back,
Yeah.
but then sometimes you just see, thank you. And I was like,
if somebody highlights something that's very important to your business, you definitely want to respond to that one. And say thank you, right? We really strive to provide meaningful service, right? And make sure our customers are happy, right? If it's, reviews tend to be kind of sketchy, right? Have you ever seen, oh, this company's excellent. Well, what do I do with that? You going to respond to that? Yeah, you'll do the canoe reviews, right? Yes, I'm most excellent.
No, just like a thank you for your review or something simple.
That's why you cherry pick, but you want to answer about 50. But you want to answer the 50 most meaningful, right? Not the 100%.
All right.
Now we're going to talk about something that's becoming kind of a hot button issue with small companies. Now we're going to check. Any lawyers here? There's a lot of lawyers, local lawyers, that look at you. Your website is ADA compliant. He has a disability, so he's going to get him to sue you so he can make 7, 8, 9 grand. Happening everywhere, guys. It used to be just the federal government going after companies with deep pockets. right? The Apples, the General Motors, the Microsofts with deep pockets, they would go after them to make an example. Now, it's going everywhere. 2018 was kind of a magic year when the feds decided the American Disabilities Act really does apply to websites because people cannot conduct business without them any longer. Right? If you're searching for products, your jump point is search. There is a whole set of guidelines. There is a link in this presentation to the whole set. The important thing are those 6 things. You have proper captioning, that all of your pictures have alt text, right? That your colors are right. Remember we talked about color earlier and being hard to read? Just imagine if we had a visual disability, right? Where I'm not blind, but I'm legally blind. Right now I can't see things. Or me, who's very farsighted. I can see a golf ball 300 yards out, put something right here, can't see it. How you navigate. Right? People with disabilities can't navigate with trackpads and mouses. So there's a lot of things. Those are the 6 key areas. However, there's a lot there. Did I say something about lawsuits and demand letters? Steadily going up every year. There is good news, though. This is one case where I would not go alone. I would hire one of these 4 companies. And I will tell you guys, I only work with 2 software companies. And marketing asset management out of the UK for international stuff. I don't use it here in the US. And Accessibility in the US for ADA compliance. I think they're the best one. I will be very honest with you. They pay me. Every time you guys use my link and go to their site and sign up, I get a commission. The price doesn't change for you, but I get a commission. Right? I think they're the best one, the only reason I'm working. Thing to do is sign up with one of those, because look, there's tax credits to be had. It'll end up costing you, if your revenues are under $1 million, you have less than 30 people working for you, it ends up costing you about 50%. A little more than 50%, because the first 250, the feds say that's on you. So there is good news there in that to achieve that, right, up to 10,250, so you can get a tax credit of $5,000. So if you get a company and they charge you $200 a month, you're basically paying about $100 of that. So now, before you guys get to ask me questions, I'm going to ask you, did you guys notice what I did to you? I did 2 things to you.
Picked on me.
That's just you. You're special, so that's just you. The first one is I repeated certain things several times. Why do you think that happened? As humans, we remember about 10% of what's said to us. So the things I wanted you to remember, I repeated multiple times. The other things, did you notice anything unusual about my presentation, how it's grouped? Everything's grouped in groups of 3 or 5. Because as humans, we understand things in groups of 5. 3 or 5. Even numbers tend to confuse the mind. And over 5, we don't have enough mental capacity or attention to go. You ever seen the 21 things that you need to know about this, and you get through about 4 and like, I'm done, I quit. Right? We all do that. Like, we get excited. I'm going to, you get to about 4 and like, for God's sake, I'm done. So I did those 2 things to you on purpose, to make a point. When you think about things, when you talk about your business, the 3 things that you want customers to know. 5 if you have to push 5. Jess would probably have to push 5 because they do a lot of cool stuff here. But most businesses, 3, and you're done. So now the floor is yours. What do you guys want to know?
ChatGPT.
I have been working a lot of that. To tell you what, ChatGPT, and I like Bard better.
Do you really? I think you're the first person I've heard say that. Are you a Bard
The-
person?
Bard is, yeah, Bard is interesting.
The secret to AI is not the AI.
Yeah.
AI is neither here nor there. It's a whole bunch of data, large language models, right? They go blah, 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 and they spit out answers. Prompt engineering is where it's at. I have a younger brother who's a PhD in chemical engineering, works in pharma, and I have an older brother who's a doctor. I'm the black sheep of the family. And I've been working with the two of them to show them how to do research and how to get meaningful things out of AI. And they finally got it, that prompt engineering. I've got to dump a page of all these prompts. Right? If I wanted to write a blog post for my website, I'll go in and say, I need you to write an SEO optimized blog on this topic. Please don't do anything. Confirm you understand. It'll come back and say, I understand. Then I go to Google and put the topic in and get those questions people also asked. Right? Because I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I'm happy to cheat and steal from other people who do good stuff. All right, so I get those questions and I put them in. Still with the prompt, don't write anything yet. Then I say, make sure that the following links are included in the thing and link to key pages on the website. And then I go back and tell it, so it did an absolute SEO, and then I edit it. But you can write it. So prompt engineering is critically important. You guys know why links are so important? Why are links? You're almost there.
Trackability.
Think about the guys that founded Google.
It's for SEO purposes, right?
Uh-huh.
That's what it's for. Because if you have the link in there, then.
So Google is very big on EAT, expertise, authority, trustworthiness of your site. They'll make those decisions with or without you. But think about the guys that founded Google. They were academics. And the way academics gets judged is how many people reference their work.
Yes.
Sound a lot like backlinks, guys? So if you think about it, backlinks are critically important. Now, they'll discount certain types of links, and you certainly don't want to go to a black hat company that will generate a whole bunch of links for you because Google will discount it. In fact, they'll actually penalize you for it.
Questions? How did you see the impact of from like last year when Google started penalizing custom sites that were not custom? So if they were templated WordPress, Wix sites that didn't have custom HTML frameworks, like what are your thoughts about that? And then as far as the SEO goes, the big penalization of the fear of AI about copy paste content. So what were some of your
That's
insights
coming,
into that?
right? Google's going to penalize people for using AI. AI has distinctive writing patterns.
Yeah.
So you can spot something that's AI written a mile away. And a lot of people just don't think through it and edit it. One of the cool things about AI, you can tell it the tone. You can tell it that I want it formal, informal, conversational, descriptive, right? And it will write it in that style. I was working on an idea that a couple nights ago I was sitting, being the 3 dogs were home alone. My wife was at the North American International Auto Show in Detroit. So I'm flipping through Netflix. I'm like, the Eagle, I always meant to watch that movie. Right? It's about the Roman Empire and the Legion lost its eagle, right? The branding. So brain starts running, right? And then it goes back and thinks about the gift that never stops giving, the whole Bud Light debacle, right? If you're a marketing instructor like I am, that's a gift that keeps on giving, right? Because they couldn't have done everything more wrong if they tried. And so in AI, I gave it a whole bunch of instructions, right? Because I was like a leadership model, all the things that I find interesting about the Roman legions. How does that apply to marketing? And it came back with some answers. And then I filled in the things that I know, and it came up with a pretty good article that I'm getting ready to publish. Right? But I wasn't happy with what AI wrote. And I had Bard write it, and I had ChatGPT write it. So, a couple of things, guys. There's a link there. Remember I said that there's a whole lot of sites, the list of 50 review sites. There's a link to Accessibility if you guys want to check it out. There's a link there. W3, guys, is also really cool. W3 schools are free. If you Google W3, and you can learn how to code, you can learn how to write HTML if you were that crazy, right? The bottom 5, if you send me an email, I will send those to you. I built a little Excel sheet that calculates return on advertising spend, right? It'll help you figure out your break even, et cetera, for advertising. I wrote a piece on how to perform keyword research for my students because they were struggling. The program I teach in, I teach at 9 universities like Michigan, Wisconsin, University of Miami, a couple on the West Coast, North Carolina State, 9 of them altogether. It's a digital boot camp where you get people with no college degree or possibly a college degree, and you get them ready to be digital marketers in 9 months. So it has learning. They have to build an agency, including brand architecture, build a website for their agency, et cetera. And then about halfway through, they get a small business client that's either minority or female owned, and they put a digital strategy together for them. So they were struggling, one of the groups, with SEM keyword research, so I wrote a piece on that. Defining customers, you guys ever heard of what a persona is? It's the, let me see if I can find it. It'll be easier if I show you some of these things.
And for anyone who's curious, we do have a copy of the PowerPoint. We'll email everyone afterwards. We'll also link it on the live stream afterwards.
So a lot of this stuff will have my branding and it'll say copyright on it. Just ignore it. If I give it to you, I give it to you. This is a content plan. I told you guys I'm fundamentally lazy. I put in marketing project management software at little companies like Walmart, Sears, Target, right? A whole bunch of others. And they run thousands of programs a year. Try to see that on a calendar. So I developed this instead, which tells you the timing, the frequency. Again, back to that, I'm a fundamentally lazy human being, right? Drop down box, right? Then, geez, if I'm consistent, what am I trying to achieve with that communication? Right? Who the audience is, what my message is. Again, another drop down box, and it says, where am I going to put it? You guys can have these, you don't have to take pictures, right? Big companies have digital assets. So little companies, right, you're storing that somewhere. Put the link in there so you can always find it. Because you know what? Lawsuits happen. And if you're looking for something you can't find it, you tend to lose. So put a link in there to where you stuffed it. These are the keywords that are being used in that content. Content description and a content pillar. So if I'm a real estate company here, you got a couple of good ones here in town, by the way, right? And I want to talk about different things. They go up in different content pillars. One may be on home inspections. one may be on mortgages, one may be on, you know, how to spot good value. Those are content pillars, and you want to make sure all your content goes up to a pillar, right? Again, no spraying and praying, right? No random acts of anything. And then this, just because I could, right? That's a conditional field that tells you the status. And depending on the status, see, if I say future date, it goes blue. If I say past due, it goes red. So you guys are welcome to that. It's on the list. See what else that I don't want to save that. Hang on, guys. Can't see diddly's with my glasses. There's writing. I don't know. So this is how I define customers. I start with a page like this. A description of who my customer is. What industry or occupation they're in. And what do they want? Well, people want what they need are two different things. What problem are they trying to solve? Right? If I have to drive to the bank 3 times a week, I may want a Ferrari, but what I need is a Chevy, right? So we need to understand that. Then, what value am I providing? What functional, emotional, economic, symbolic, and end value? Interesting thing happens. You guys know what the difference between a Rolex and a Timex is? They both end in EX, they both tell time, so what's the difference?
The label?
When you buy a Rolex, you're buying status. When you're buying a Timex, you're buying function. So you got to understand what your customer is buying. And the last thing is, this is pretty typical. The only difference between mine and what you normally see is mine asks, why wouldn't they buy from me? You guys ever got quotes from 2 plumbers? And one's a lot better plumber, but is a complete just cluster in communicating. So you hire the other guy. And I have to go back to the first guy and get it fixed right. All right, so why wouldn't they buy from me? People buy because they're trying to solve something, whether it's an emotional need, right? I had a bad day, right? I want to go buy something at the store. Right? I stink at golf, I got to buy a new driver. Not going to help, but, all right, so you got to think about customers a little differently than most people generally do. Let's see, where is?
When in your career did you feel confident in the material that you know?
I still don't. Life's about learning and screwing up. I like to screw up early and often, right? Because that way, that's how I've become successful, by screwing up early and often. Not by knowing more than other people. Right? The other is I work harder than people. I was telling Jess, right? If you look at my track record everywhere I've worked in marketing, right, you go back to some of the companies I've worked for, all the top marketing programs still have my name on. And I'm not that good. Nowhere near that good. I'm more disciplined. I start with the end and work backwards. I'll give you an example. That difficult woman that I worked for, she moved on from marketing and went to run analytics. And she was haranguing me one day that her analytics people could create a model and put us out of business, right? AI kind of models, right? Propensity models. I said, you're on. So we ran a program. They ran their propensity model, right? I'm just a dumb old guy. I went back and I said, looked at all the years, what years were productive, looked at all these programs, what years to leave out, right? What creative was the most successful, right? What channel did we talk to them on? And we fired. They fired just based on their model, their propensity model. We did 5 times better than they did, right? Because we did our homework. So it's about marketing is about doing your homework and understanding your customers. You can have the best pitch in the world, you can have the coolest creative, and you're not going to get through to people. It's about doing the little things. I'll give you another example. Dealers in Mexico. They want to put 30-second videos on Facebook and on other social media. Tell clients about vehicles. I'm like, don't want to do that. What we want to do is 5-6 second videos. So we ran a test against each other. They put their 30-second video. They got about 12% of the people to go all the way through it. I put up 5-6 second videos. I got over 40% of the people go through because guess what? I piqued their interest to go find more. When you give people overload of information, by the way, 6-second videos are the coolest thing going right now. Particularly for video ads. Quick, you hit somebody between the eyes and you walk away. You don't tell them why you hit them between the eyes, etc. So you have to look through a lot of these things and find the little things that work. And because we're in marketing consulting, we do a lot of research. We do a lot of homework. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
You had asked a question earlier, and I'm not sure I answered you completely.
Yeah, there was just I've worked with a digital marketing firm, and in last year September we had companies running to us that had websites that were built on Wix, WordPress, etc. that were not custom. So the HTML was not built by a coder custom; it was copy paste content. And they went from 15 trucks on the road to 5 trucks on the road in 3 or 4 weeks. So they lost in a year $1.5 million of business because they weren't ready for those changes. So most websites that we see look good on the front side, but the SEO and the way they're built on the back side don't comply with Google's requirements. And so companies spend thousands of dollars for the forward-facing aspect that looks nice, but they really don't know about the back end of it and the implications of the back end. So that's why I asked that question.
So I'll tell you, my current site is a Google site, and it's awful. Right? It's awful from all of that, but all my business comes word of mouth.
Sure.
It's people, right? So I have one because purchasing departments want. Prior to that, I had a Wix site for the same reason. Wix, I can build a Wix site in 30 minutes.
Sure.
Boom, 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 boom. Right? Easy to do. I can do a WordPress site in about 2 hours. Just don't pay me to do it because I get really expensive. Because I'm not good at it. I know how. Wix sites are awful for SEO. They're great for ADA compliance.
Sure.
Right? Because they have all the spots where you can put in the information that makes you ADA compliant. So when you look at all those point-and-click sites, they're all easy to build. They all have big gaps. You really want to go, if you don't have the money to use real tools, and when I mean real tools, I'm talking about the Adobes and those things that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. You go to WordPress and you get all the right plugins. You use a WordPress site with the right plugins, you'll be fine. So did that answer your question?
Sure.
That the point-and-click sites are great. If you just have to have one, like I do, because purchasing departments, a lot of the business I do is with big companies. And so I've done work for Disney, Microsoft, Eli Lilly, Novartis, Walmart, Sears, Target, you name the automotive, I've done work for them. Can't seem to escape the automotive industry.
What would you consider the right plugins? Are you talking about more SEO optimization like Yoast SEO?
Yoast.
Okay.
Yoast is the most. You gotta have Yoast. The others are depending on what you want to do. The other thing, websites, when we talked about that application layer, don't forget, always use Google Tag Manager. Google Tag Manager optimizes how your tags are loaded in and out of websites so that you don't get hit with performance issues. You can have an HTML coder put it in if you have a webmaster. It's not the best way to go. There's a lot of.
We're right at time for cutting off our live stream, but everyone's welcome to stay and ask more questions. But thank you everyone who joined on Facebook.